We are recording. Take it away, Desiree.
Perfect. Yes. So thank you everybody for joining me on a Friday at 4 o'clock. And I am excited to present today. And I'm also excited as I see some of my colleagues pop in the room too. So we might impromptu call on them during the presentation. But really just to share kind of the growth of our team over the last 2 years, but really rapidly over the last year, and kind of things that we've learned. And so I will keep us on time today. I've practiced, I have 27 slides that I think I can get through and leave plenty of time for Q&A. I do have some poll everywheres within the presentation, and when we get to those, I can walk you through either to do it via the website, but I also have it set up for text message as well. So just so you know that you're in the right session, we are going to talk today how we rapidly grew our team, some of the lessons learned, and then the obstacles that we encountered. And for my next slide, it's going to play automatically. I had someone do this for me previous this week in another presentation at another conference. I thought it was a really good way to set the tone and kind of put us all within the mindset of active listening and just being mindful. And so we are going to take a short 1-minute break to do a 1-minute guided meditation. And it's Friday. I'm sure if you're like me, I've been hopping in and out of meetings all day. And I frantically left a meeting to come to this one. So just a moment to take a breath and relax ourselves and set the tone for the rest of the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and hopefully I've set it up that you can hear my sound.
These instructions guide you through a 1-minute mindfulness meditation practice to be done anytime, any place. Begin by becoming aware of your body in this moment and the sensations of your body touching a chair or the ground. Now guiding your awareness to your breath. Breathing in, rest with the sensation of the in-breath. Breathing out, rest with the sensation of the out-breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Meeting your experience with acceptance, friendliness, and curiosity. If a thought arises, simply note thinking and return your attention to your breath. Breathing in, breathing out.
Sorry, that was not, okay. So thank you for participating for that. Someone else did that for me, and it really kind of got me off my email of trying to do too many things at one time and really focused on what I was here for, and just making sure that I was present and in the moment. And so we are gonna shift now into the presentation, and I have a poll set up, and this is just a low level poll, just so that way I know the rest of them will work throughout the presentation. And so if you wouldn't mind, you can either join and respond via pollev.com, or you can do it via text message. And I'm just curious for everybody in the audience today, what your job role is. I'm personally myself came from an instructional design background. I manage the learning production team here at CSU Online, which is a part of CSU Extended Campus. And so my role really is instructional design related in background. And so I'm curious what everybody else's role is. And that can help me to be prepared to answer other questions. So we have a lot of instructional designers, and I always love to see kind of the different names that our organizations use. At one point, some of our IDs were called learning producers. So we had instructional designers and learning producers. It was the same job. So it looks like we have quite a few instructional designers. So this, I think, will be really impactful, and I'm gonna probably ask to call on some of our IDs to share if they've gone through a growth within their team, kind of lessons learned as well. So I'm going to talk about our journey, and our journey really started 2 years ago. And I was not the, I had just was just transitioning into my manager role as another manager left, and we had started a little bit of this work to grow our team, but hadn't really got into the doing it part. There was conversation. There was a consultant that was brought in to say, this is how we think you could do it. And so we've been on this journey for a little bit, and we'll talk about what happened in the middle of our journey, because a year ago, obviously lots of things happened within our own world that really impacted. And so with every good story, we have a beginning, we have a middle that didn't go quite as how we thought it would go, but I really feel our group has been very successful, and we've ended in a really good spot. And so just as a question is, how many instructional designers does your organization have? I know some organizations are bigger than others. We'll talk about where we started out and how we've grown. I know a lot of people and a lot of colleagues who are the sole instructional designer at their organization. And so it looks like we have some pretty big teams, which is equally exciting. Our team obviously has grown for us here at CSU Online. So it's exciting to be with others that have gone from little to big, or even those small but mighty teams. And so where we started, I started this journey with the group 5 years ago. I was the third instructional designer hired by CSU Online, and we had a very flat reporting structure. There wasn't very many of us. It was easy to have a couple of people report straight up to the director. We were actually combined under what we called research and analytics, which was instructional design, learning analytics, and IT. And that director did all three of those departments. And so there weren't very many of us. And we were kind of the jack of all trades. And so our development capacity was what we called a 1-to-1-to-1. We had one instructional designer to one course to one faculty. And we did everything as that instructional designer. So if a faculty said, I want to have this video, we would meet them, off-site or in the classroom and film the video, bring it back and edit it. We were doing accessibility, we were doing quality, we were kind of doing it all within one role. And because of that, we had a lower capacity load. So we did about 5 to 6 courses per instructional designer per development cycle, and our development cycles are 16 weeks long. So maybe in a year, I did 12 to 15 courses, which is a lot. That's not to say it's not a lot, but we also knew we had a lot of people waiting for our services. And that kind of is what kicked off some of these questions that we're gonna go through today. And so, yeah, we did it all. We had really great skill set, but it was also very hard to find that skill set. And so we were looking to hire, an instructional designer, a videographer, multimedia specialist, instructional technologist, all within the same person. And so we would go out to search to fill the role if we wanted to expand, and we just couldn't find what met the job requirements because they were very stringent and job requirements that had a lot of skills needed. And I know some of us as IDs have a lot of those skills, but sometimes we don't. We haven't been expected to edit video in a previous role, and so we didn't have that skill. And so I'm going to ask on the next slide, just of curiosity, within where you currently reside in your organization, if you have a similar reporting structure where it's really one ID who does most of it, to one course development, to one faculty member. Oh, so this is going to be exciting. So there's quite a bit that to have a different organization. I'm going to ask if somebody that answered no, if you don't mind, and Sophia, hopefully this is okay to ask people to come off of mute, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about how your structure is set up. or how many people are assigned to courses to work on them if it's not one instructional designer to one course?
I can start us out since I'm already on camera, but please, as I speak, prepare to jump in after. We have 4 instructional designers / e-learning techs. I'm an e-learning technologist by title, and what part of what that means is that I might be a second or third person working on a course development.
Anybody
We break
else?
ours up. I can, is that okay?
Yeah, is this Jackie? I think I see your box
Yeah.
pop up.
Yeah. So in ours, we have product ownership for our department. And so if they want help with videos, they go to one person. If they want help with Qualtrics, they go to somebody else. And so that's kind of how we do it. But my particular role, I do everything for everyone. I'm a one-man band, and I want another band member. Trust me, I do. But I have really had to adjust. So I understand that that overwhelming feeling. I think I pumped out 25 courses on my own from start to finish.
That's a lot for being one person band. Yeah, that's a lot, 25.
This is Anna from University of Washington. We have 4 people in our team, and there's only one actual technically instructional designer, although 2 of us do also instructional design duties and work in that capacity, as well as other hats. One of my colleagues only does video and photos. Another one of my colleagues does a lot of multimedia, managing students, and then supporting faculty. I support faculty in some instructional design, as well as I have a big role in accessibility, not only in checking accessibility, teaching accessibility, but also leading some of the efforts on our campus. And then our instructional designer, he does support, but more strictly instructional design in courses.
I'll pause for just a second in case anybody else wants to share. Otherwise, we'll go to the next slide.
I'm not seeing any hands raised or unmutes. Yeah.
Thank you, Sophia. So we kind of came down to these really 4 big questions. We said we had this one-to-one-to-one. We knew that we had a lot of requests waiting on our group, and in queue is what we called them. And we just didn't know how do we get faculty the service that they need? How are we available? But we can only do so much, right? If I'm doing everything myself, I only have so much capacity in the day. And so we really came down to these kind of 4 big questions. Is how can we increase capacity? How could we disaggregate work? And so taking, really reframing that idea that the instructional designer is that one-stop shop for everything. We worked on launching quality initiatives. And so how could we improve quality of not only the courses, but the services that we offered? And then how could we become more efficient? So we started with these questions. And at this time, we had a consultant come in, and as instructional designers, we had limited interaction with the consultant. It was really high-level leadership and director level that was working with the consultant. And we kind of got handed this map that this is where we think you can go. This is what we think is going to happen. And here's the plan to grow your team. And that was okay. We did take some of those ideas, but then we got kind of to this middle part, and there was so many things that happened. And the next slide really shows how I felt about the middle. Like this was me. I was in my managerial role at the time. I wasn't sure what was happening. I had recognized that we didn't have a lot of instructional design input on the plan, and things were kind of going sideways for us. And within that, as an organization, we went through really immense change. And so we went through an organizational and a division leadership change. We went through a team leadership change. As an organization, we lost about 50% of our current staff. And so we had a lot of new staff coming in. We had a pandemic happen, which I don't know about any of you, but when I took my studies, I did not have pandemic planning 101 as an instructional designer. We really weren't, we were just trying to put out as many fires as we could. And as part of the growth and that disaggregation of work, we got out of sequence with hiring of positions. And that was a lot to do with just within our organization, how positions were prioritized, because we had so many to fill that we had to give up services for others to get positions hired that they needed. We couldn't be greedy and just get all of ours backfilled. But then we went through and maybe one didn't get approved by HR. We had to go rewrite the job description and start that process all over. And so while it was a great plan on paper, it didn't go as was easy as saying, from consultant, here's what you're going to do. And so we had to start to really adapt and figure out where we were going to go. And really for me as a manager, we had to take this moment to reflect. We had to step back and say, okay, this was a plan that was given to us. We've had all these other things happen. We're reorging as an organization now because we are under amazing new leadership. And what have we learned so far that we can reflect on and use and go forth and make a plan that's going to work before our whole ship sinks? And so before I go on, I'm going to answer the question in the chat. Do you have training for writing job descriptions, hiring, and building a team? And the answer is no. I didn't personally have any training. There might be others that did, but we didn't really have access to those services. And so we were kind of learning as we went with this. And we had this plan for building the team that came partially from the consultant. And so we had used that as our foundation. And I'll answer the second chat question that's going to come up here. So after we reflected, and really I reflected as a manager, we had a lot of feedback from our group, and we have some of those colleagues here today that part of our biggest obstacle was that we scaled too fast without creating a foundation. And so we didn't have these key pieces that we needed as a team to really properly function. Part of that is we didn't have standard onboarding as well. And so it was really hard to bring somebody new in because they didn't have the best experience. It was kind of oh, I have to tell you this, or, oh, we got to teach you that. And so really trying to work on what is the foundation we need for our team in order to make us all successful. Within that, because we lacked any sort of process maps or documentation, none of us had the same shared understanding of how things were going to happen in the process, and really what we should be doing, what were each of our roles and responsibilities. And so during this time, we had added a lot of team members, and none of us were really kind of sure what each other was doing. And now that we have this videographer, how does that fit in? And so we didn't have a shared understanding within our own group. Within the structure, as you saw before, it was flat, and a lot of the initial hiring was to keep it flat. But there was no hierarchy, there was no career ladder. We're looking for something very specific that was very difficult to find. And so we had 2 failed searches before we finally went back and said, something isn't quite right. We have to figure out what's happening here. And just personally, I just adore everybody on the team. So for those of you that are on my team and on the call, it was too many direct reports for me as a manager, and I didn't feel that I could give them the attention that they deserved. And I didn't want that to be the experience. And some things were out of our control. We started this, we were having pretty good forward motion. And the biggest thing that happened that was outside of our control, obviously, was the pandemic. And so we had to reroute to help support campus, pandemic planning. We had lost HR at that point. And so our 2 HR personnel had left. And so it was, who's even going to help us hire? And then we went on a temporary hiring freeze. And so we had this growth plan. We had already put things in motion, but then other things that as a manager, I couldn't control happened, and I had to account for that. So I found this quote, and I think for me, it really summed it up, because there had been this urgency that was pressed upon our team that we had to grow, and we needed to do it fast. And I think that, reflecting back prior to being the manager of the group, I wish I would have raised my hand as an ID and said, hold on, I think this is too much too fast, and really thinking how much change is going to happen. And so I think that for me, this was the quote that it said, it does not matter how slowly you go, as long as you don't stop. And so I wish we would have implemented change a lot slower than we did, knowing that we were going to get to our end goal. It just might have taken us a little bit longer to get there. And so we're kind of at the end. Although the end being that we'll never be done. We still have all these great things to do, but we kind of are getting towards the end of our journey. And it has been a lot of work, really particularly over the last 8 months. And I think it was just amazing of our team to come together and say, yes, it's been a pandemic. Yes, we're tired. It's just been a long couple of months to help everybody get online. But we're going to take the time out of our day to do some of this great work, because we know it's going to help us in the future. And so part of our reimagining of our team was really rethinking the role of the instructional designer. And so not thinking them as this person who needs to have all of these kind of technical skills, but more as that high level collaborator and consultant with faculty to really project manage that development, give recommendations on pedagogy and best practices, but that I didn't need to know how to do Adobe Premiere, that I would have somebody on my team that could assist me with that work. And so the initial goal that was put forth was that we would do 10 course developments per instructional designer for 3 development cycles a year. So really averaging 25 to 30 courses per year per instructional designer. And someone earlier in the chat asked how many courses we do in a year. And within the last year, we did right over 300 course developments. And that's going to be a mix of brand new courses that have never been offered online before, new programs, and courses that have maybe worked with an instructional designer in the past, or had already been taught online and was coming through what we call a refresh, but still bringing them up to minimum kind of design standards. And so were those online course developments or a mix of hybrid or tech enhanced? So our group does fully online courses. So we have another group on campus that would do like hybrid or using the LMS in a face-to-face course. So we do fully online courses, and most of our programs are 16-week courses. We have a couple of programs that do 8-week courses in the term, but most often it's a 16-week development. And so part of our disaggregating work and really coming together as a team and saying, what are things that an ID doesn't need to do? We came up with this disaggregation of work. And so we have hired quite a few students. I believe at this moment we have 16 students on our team. And we call them course build assistants. And so we've spent a lot of time training them within the LMS to add pages, link files, embed videos, but also worked with our Student Disability Center and Assistive Technology Resource Center to get them training in how to make documents accessible. And so as instructional designers, I'm getting these PowerPoints, these Word docs, et cetera, and I'm handing them off to the CBAs, the course build assistants, to say, can you please run this through an accessibility checker, correct reading order, add alt text, et cetera, and then send it back. And so that was some of the work that we took off. The same as with caption editors. Any course that comes through our group for production, we fully caption all instructor created videos. And so we have a team of amazing caption editors that will go in through our video hosting service, Kaltura, and edit those captions. And then we have a full videography and multimedia team, and in fact built 2 multimedia studios. And so we have where we can do on-site filming, lightboard filming, off-site filming, etc. And so as IDs, we make those initial appointments with the videography team. We have a consultation and we say, this is what, the instructor and us envision for the course. And they kind of take that project and run and will send us back final videos. We added an instructional technologist on our team to help us with technology, incorporating technology and researching new tech tools, but also just to do basic technical support for faculty. And so they can email into the ticketing system and say, something isn't quite right about this, or this link is broken, and our instructional technologist will help. And then we've added a couple other support staff really to help us manage day-to-day projects and processes. And so the question here is, how did you get past the FERPA and privacy concerns of the LMS and academic tech team to have students in courses where they had access to edit courses? So we collect what degree that they're currently enrolled in all the courses, and they don't actually have access to the system. So they're assigned courses through our senior instructional designers, and those SIDs have their course schedule to know that this person's in JTC, we're not going to put them in this course because that's the department that they're taking courses from. So we separate them out kind of manually. We haven't found a way to automate that, so it is a little bit of work on the supervisor's end, but that's how we got around so they don't have access to any content that they may encounter in their studies or in their degree program. And then when they're hired, we do ask them to sign statements. I think we called it like a statement of ethics, that they know that they're having access to course materials and they're not to share them out with anybody. They're to do their job and then pull them out of the course. And so far, we haven't had anybody kind of break that trust. They've done an amazing job. They do such great work for us. And we haven't had any concerns raised by faculty by allowing students to come in. So this is where we spent the most part. And as a manager, this is where most of my time has been spent really since August, and maybe a little bit forward for the first bullet. And so taking in a lot of feedback from the team and just really reflecting on what we have and we didn't have and what was kind of going wrong is we didn't have what I really consider that foundation. And so previous, we had, when there was 4 of us, we had been tracking course development and using that as a communication tool in an Excel sheet. And that worked great when there was maybe 20 courses and 4 people. But when we, tripled capacity, it didn't work well. And it was so hard to understand like who made what change and who was doing here. And it was a lot of manual work. And so we implemented a ticketing system, but we're really using it as a project management tool. And so the courses get put on queue, and that's done by another team called the College Relations and Program Strategy team. And what they do is they put in a request for service, and that request is, all of basic information about a course. And then as a queue manager, I can say, okay, we have, 102 courses on term for summer development. And then we assign those tickets, those course development out to our instructional designers. It's also how we manage the handoff of the work to other teams. And so within what we call the parent ticket, the main record, we are then submitting child tickets to go to other buckets of work. And so, videography, I have this video that needs to be edited. Here's some information about that. To caption editors, here's 4 videos. I need them to be fully captioned. And so then we can track work and approvals that way. And approvals always come back to the instructional designer. So we implemented that system at the end of April of last year. And then what we've done really since August, during all of this development and all of this other work happening, is that we had assistance from an outside group who came in with a project manager really to help us coordinate the meetings and a lot of ways kind of get the work just scheduled out. But we came together as a team. We spent a great deal of time making process maps. And so we sat down together and said, here's what we think we're doing. And it was an insightful endeavor in the case that everybody had a different understanding. And so that really became clear that, well, hey, I do it this way, but so-and-so does it that way. And wait, you over here are doing it just a little bit different. And so it took us a little bit of time to kind of get what we currently were doing down, but then coming into agreements on what we were going to do. And so we have our process maps set out for all but just a few things that we do within the development process. And then within that, our organization implemented a shared repository. So we adopted SharePoint. And then we used templates to create all of our standard operating procedures that align back to our process maps. And so we can go now to a specific part of a process and say, I know in SharePoint, there's this documentation, and that's going to give me all the information that I need on how to do that. And then we put all of this into what we call the LP team portal. And it's a training portal, it's a Canvas course. And there are different modules. We start very high level with big picture process. And then each module after that goes deeper and deeper in. And so we have used that to not only kind of norm those of us who've been on the team for a little bit of time around, kind of our new process adoption and what the expectations were, but also anybody new. And our students go through this as well. And the students had not been onboarded. Really, they were kind of just put on the team and told bits and pieces. And so with them, because we knew they needed the most support, we did a skills survey with them. And within that skills survey, we had them rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 5 of their comfort level with tasks that we had been asking them to do. And took that information and said, great, we know here are the 15 things that they're not really comfortable doing. They're not sure what they're being asked to do. And so those became training topics for us as well. And then within that, through the outside project manager, we wrote expectations for each job description on our team. And so they were drafted, and then as a team, we reviewed them and said, yep, we agree, or we put our own kind of expectations in. And some of it wasn't really course development related, but it might have been, when you need to request time off, how do you do that? And here's the expectation. Or are we all saying that we're okay to respond to emails within 2 business days? And so once we had finalized those, we asked everybody on our team to sign them and to send them back in. And so I'm going to stop here really quick to ask any questions, because this is a big piece, right? This is a lot of information. So I want to make sure I can answer any questions that anybody has. And Sophia, I'll get through the chat here.
Yeah, I can filter that for you. One question we have is, what tool did you use for your project management and ticketing system?
We used Fresh Service, which I think the parent company is called Fresh Desk. I think they have a couple other things, but the ticketing system is Fresh Service.
Awesome. And we had someone suggest Trello as an alternative, which I have used Trello, and my team uses Jira, which is another higher higher level detailed product from the same parent company Atlassian. And then we did have one person ask if they could connect with you outside or offline of this presentation. So maybe you'll get to it, but just a little plug to share your email or your contact information when you get a chance, if you're willing.
Yeah, I'll put my email in right now. I'll answer why we did not use anything else. We had there for a hot minute used, based on the previous consultant, we used QuickBase. But when that consultant was done, we didn't have a QuickBase admin. And so I became the QuickBase administrator, and I did not know the system. I spent a lot of time taking, free online courses to understand. And so why we adopted Fresh Service is that is what our IT group was adopting, and they were very happy to take on the admin and build out of it. And so it alleviated a lot of responsibility off a manager of the team. And so while it's not perfect, and we've kind of compromised on what we wanted it to do, having that support was more valuable to me personally than one of us trying to learn another system and not having any support to update it. And then our process maps honestly started out, and maybe one of my teammates on the call can remember the software. It was just like a free doodle board, is what we started with. And we just started putting boxes places, but then the final product was made in Visio. But we did not start in Visio. We just started really in us just trying to put thoughts down on paper. And we had the boxes kind of color coded. Like I was pink and Desiree put all the pink ones down. And so then we left things like, questions to ask or things to find out. So then we have the final form here in Visio.
And how is it going so far? It's going well?
Yeah, it's going really well. Yep. I'll go ahead and advance. Everybody can keep asking questions too. I'm going to advance to the next slide. And so I should have put the slide that we had in before. So if you remember, we had our director and then 4 little boxes down below. And this is where we're at. We're very close to being at currently. And so we don't have a current director. We have somebody interim. Our executive director is the interim director for us right now. We are hiring that position. But we very quickly realized we couldn't keep going flat, and it was too much. And so we really broke our team apart into 2 and created 2 manager positions. And so I'm one half of the team, and I'm the manager of learning and development. And then Robert Jordan is the other half, and he's the manager of educational technology and media. And so we tried to kind of group ourselves into smaller teams that were based on skill. And so videography is under media, and they needed a lot of other things that really resided in media. Some of these positions, this is really our future state. We're not quite there yet. And we haven't reorged the one half of the team. We have a couple of IDs in these senior ID roles, but we're getting ready to hire them permanently. And once that happens, then we will take everybody that's directly reporting under me and break us into 3 kind of what we call pods. And tentatively, the idea is that each pod or each senior ID will then project manage a specific aspect of a bigger project. And so somebody's going to take over quality matters, somebody's going to take over managing our professional education developments, course developments, et cetera. And so part of this hasn't happened yet, but we anticipate that that would be done by the end of the summer. And so that is my last slide. So I'm really happy to answer any sort of questions.
Thank you so much. I can sort of get us started with live questions here. We have about 10 minutes left. I have made it so that everyone in this session can unmute and ask live, or you can chat, whatever feels best to you. I want to first commend you for advocating for having an equal seat at the table and making these decisions. It's really hard to maintain that, especially with an academic focused agenda, if that makes any sense. So I would love if you could touch on some of that, if you got any pushback, if you started on that level where you had that influence and that equal say of process and ticketing and that kind of thing. And then sort of how it shifted, if at all, since you've implemented this system.
Yeah, so when we started, we didn't, and I might call on others in the group too. Maybe if Greg is still here, he's been around with me the longest. We didn't have a lot of advocacy for ourselves and for what was happening with our team. It was really high level down, being told what to do. And what happened was that there's a lot of things we knew day to day that weren't accounted for or just didn't fit into the process. They were forgotten about. And so when we had that leadership change, our current executive director really said, this is your team. This is, you guys know the work better than anybody else. Come back and tell me what you want. And so it was us saying, we need a career ladder. We want to be able to take students, mentor them to course developers, which is a level below an instructional designer for us, to an instructional designer to a senior ID with some supervisory and project management into their job description, to a manager, to a director. And so it felt good to get to say, we as a team are the experts on our own team, and we know what we need. And our voice has been very well heard. And I couldn't say thank you enough to those that heard our voice and really advocated and gave us the agency to propose what you want to do and let's get it done. And so that's kind of where we're at. Yeah, we're trying to hire positions, which has been easier said than done in a pandemic. And so that's why we quite haven't finished yet. We're just waiting to get through our last couple of hires on the group.
Yes, I will admit, I am a pandemic onboarder, and I got multiple job offers at the time that everyone else was being furloughed. So I understand there's also a high demand for people in our field. So we do have a question that was sent directly to me. How long did the transition take to move from 4 IDs and a manager to the organizational structure you shared at the end?
Yeah, so we started this 2 years ago. And I would say 4 IDs, I would say most of our growth has happened over the last year. So it's taken us 2 years, but we really rapidly expanded, and we're able to rapidly expand within the last year because of COVID, because we have so much work coming in. I think that timeline's pretty accurate. So about 2 years for us to do this. And we've only had students on our team since January of 2020. And so we didn't get approval for full-time hires right away. So we started with students. And then manager came in, and then we've kind of disaggregated from there.
It seems like you've had to have a good amount of patience. At one point you had a Confucius quote up about taking your time. And I know from my perspective, it's really hard to adopt that, especially when everyone's emailing you like, what do we do? We're in crisis. So how did that work out? I'm sort of wondering, like, what really was your mindset shift, and what allowed you to move from this reactive, emergent sort of space to this proactive, we're taking our time to figure this out?
I think because we got to a point where, for me personally, it was just too much. And so nobody on our team take this the wrong way, because I really do just appreciate everybody, but it was too much for me as a manager. I had too many direct reports. I knew I wasn't getting to people in a timely manner. Students weren't underneath our side at that time. They were underneath somebody else, and they were saying the same thing, like, we don't know what we're doing. Nobody helps us. So I think we had to get to that moment where it got so bad that the only way we could go was up. And we have to just say, you know what, we went too fast. We recognize that now. And I think it, for me, was a combination of not being included in the initial conversation when the first consultant came in, but also being very new to my role as manager and not kind of having that confidence to say, this is not a good plan and we should not go forth with this. So we got to about June of last year where I think it was really hard. It was a really tough time for our group. And we just had to say, there were, we can reflect and make better choices now. And this is how we're going to get ourselves back on track. And I think just being really truthful with the team that it didn't go as planned and it didn't go well, but just hang in there because it's going to get really awesome here quick. Does it answer your
Thank
question?
you.
Sophia?
It does. Yes. Rana Sahib would like to come off of mute and ask a question.
Sure. Thank you so very much. Wonderful presentation. Thank you for sharing all of your experiences and solutions. My question is that as you increase the staffing, how were you able to convince the administration in terms of the value that you are bringing? And perhaps is there any revenue that is attached that can be demonstrated, because administration usually wants to know what is the value you're adding in terms of support and all that. Plus, is it leading to any revenue increase as well to support the positions that were hired? Obviously, that is part one of the question. And second is that faculty are always in a rush. What are some quick techniques that you use to convince faculty that, look, instruction design is a slow process where you may even have to get trained and unlearn and get with the program, so to speak, because they usually don't take us seriously, if I could say that. Thank you.
Yeah, so those are really good questions. Part of the convincing was it didn't take a lot of convincing. We have a college relations and program strategy team that works in tandem with us. And that group is really our relational managers between our organization at CSU Online and departments on campus. And so we had spent a great deal of time. Alicia Tarantino is the associate director over there, really gathering information. And so we did not have a refresh process up until this year. And so we had developed all these great courses for a really long time, but we had never brought them through. So we have about 600 courses on that queue alone that we know we need to go back and assist faculty to update. But the college relations team is doing such great work to get new programs that they fill queue. We have our queue filled out to capacity for the next year and a half. And so we try to bring on extra support when they come and say, we really have to get these next 10 courses on queue. And so, okay, well, how can we do that? So in terms of revenue, I don't have the numbers. That's a great question. There's kind of another team that's out there campaigning and marketing to get courses on queue. And I forgot the second, how we get faculty buy-in. Yeah, that's, again, I think a lot of that comes through the college relations team. And so they meet regularly with their departments, at least quarterly. They always talk up our services. And we do a lot of what I call road shows, where we're invited into those departmental meetings and we can show off the skills that we can do. And so when we had the new media studios built and we could flesh out the media team, Robert has spent a great deal of time at faculty meetings saying, look, we can go out. We have a drone now. We can do drone footage and using samples and showing samples. We've met faculty at a seed research facility and did on-site filming. And so we have had the luck in that we have that kind of in with the faculty and the departments. And we have a lot of great faculty, and that's why it's really important for us to keep their satisfaction rate high when they work with us and add those services and that value, because they talk us up on campus and then people start to connect and say, can I work with you? Can I get on queue? I don't know.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I have a quick, if you don't mind, a quick follow-up question that this
really quick, Rana. We are at time.
Yes.
So but there's the finale. So we can stay in this room if Desiree has time. Otherwise, this is the end of our 50 minutes. So thank you, everyone. I put the link to the session eval in the chat along with the Friday finale link, Zoom link. So go ahead, fill out the eval, join the finale if you have time, and I'm going to stop the recording.